All right, I am ready whenever you are.
All right, good morning. My name is Andy, and these are my colleagues, Carolina, David, and Kearns. We decided to research St. Louis and its crime rate, along with its causes and effects.
So our thesis: how has the crime rate in St. Louis been affected by the degree of urbanization, the strength of law enforcement, and the quality of the education system?
The problem is that St. Louis is becoming increasingly urbanized, which has led to higher rates of crime. Due to this problem, this creates an increase in underfunded areas. But the crime rate in St. Louis has been revised due to areas where neighborhoods are located. In certain areas, there's more funding which offers better protection and reduces how many crimes occur. Robert Pernengo, a graduate who completed his PhD in criminology and criminal justice at the University of Missouri, stated communities with higher economic disadvantages experience the most pronounced fluctuations in violence. With the lack of economic disadvantages, neighborhood crimes are often increased since there are no security and safety precautions taken.
As well as causing an increase in underfunded areas, urbanization also causes an increase in overcrowding. As compared to rural areas, cities offer substantially more opportunities. This causes many to move from these rural areas to city or urban areas. In the case of St. Louis, nearly 70% of their population lives in about 2.6% of the land space. Overcrowding can cause unfavorable living conditions, can increase poverty, and cause many to not be provided with many adequate resources and services.
Another effect is higher poverty rates. The citizens living in these underfunded neighborhoods know if they commit a crime, it will ensure that they will not get caught, which encourages them to still take action. Colleen Gordon, a writer on the American history of public policy and public economy, stated, the rate of felony crime, and especially homicide, is closely correlated with neighborhood stability and poverty. In St. Louis, it has been seen that neighborhoods with higher average levels of unemployment experience have had higher levels of delinquency rates, which delinquents are another reason that can cause an increase in crime.
A possible solution to combat these effects of urbanization would be to create more jobs in the surrounding areas.
Another solution would be to allocate funding equally.
The last solution that we found would be to better provide essential services to those in the surrounding areas, whether it be healthcare, food, shelter, education, etc.
A benefit to these solutions would be a decrease in unemployment rates. A low unemployment rate means there are lower workers available to fill in job openings. This creates an advantage for job seekers. It creates more opportunities for those who had previously had a difficulty in finding a job.
Allocating money equally, creating jobs, and providing these essential services all go to decrease poverty rates, as it allows less to be dependent on welfare programs, and it just better provides necessities and allows them to spend less on things that they need.
Another benefit would be equal opportunities for everyone. In a society where there is inequality, there is bound to be higher crime rates. The lack of equality can increase and also property crime. Unless people are treated equally and given equal opportunities, societies hardly progress economically.
Possible limitation to these solutions would be that opening up more job opportunities would likely result in lower quality work, as those that would fill these job opportunities or job openings would likely be both less educated and less trained.
Not only would there be lower quality work, but also a lack of resources. If more funding was given to projects of rural areas, other sectors of the city's government would be impacted by the economical change.
Creating jobs, allocating funding, as well as the provision of these essential services are all things that have to get through government in one way or another. Getting these things through government would be a rigorous and timely process that could likely result in none of it even getting through.
The next factor that affects crime rate in St. Louis is the lack of support for its law enforcement. Government leaders, such as the mayor, have recently been pushing to defund the police by $4 million. This, in turn, will eliminate 100 officer positions.
One of the effects of this problem would be that police brutality leads to retaliation against law enforcement. Over the past few years, there has been this topic about police brutality and has been very controversial, and very sensitive to talk about. In 2014, the APA made a thorough investigation, which the APA is the American Psychological Association, which has 54 or subdivisions of psychology. Made an investigation of the Michael Brown case, the 18-year-old who was shot for not putting his hands up. This caused retaliation in the African American community, and many stops that were made by the police were in turn overturned by the African American community towards the police officers.
With government leaders advocating for defunding the police, the respect and support for law enforcement has decreased significantly. This in turn has led to an increase in the crime rate.
Another effect is that it limits officers' ability to do their job successfully. In a critical situation where citizens could be in danger, officers might not have the ability to do the right move due to the defunding of the police due to that problem.
As we said before, defunding the police leads to less money and lower number of officer positions. As stated by the International Associations of Chiefs of Police, the officer's fundamental duties are to serve the community, safeguard lives and property, protect the innocent against deception, and the weak against oppression or intimidation, and the peaceful against violence or disorder. Also, to respect the constitutional rights of equality, justice, and liberty. This goes to show the importance of the presence of law enforcement, and lowering their funding lowers their power in numbers. One of the most important solutions is to put funding back into the police force. This will allow police officers to get better equipment, more job positions, and better training programs.
Another solution would be implementing new training programs. This would give the security and to the police officers that they will do the right move in a critical situation.
Government leaders and certain groups within the city can bring support back to law enforcement, and this influence can allow police to do their jobs in a less tense environment and be able to protect the city to its full extent. The benefits are to increase the number of law enforcement and the amount of funds. People will have greater resources, police will have greater resources to do their jobs, and having more support for law enforcement will lower tension and lead to less events of police brutality and tension.
One of the limitations to the solutions is deciding how much power law enforcement can implement on their subjects or the people that they stop. This power includes both physically and legally. Police officers might be afraid of going out into the public and do their job because of the topic of police brutality. They don't know what move to make or what to do in a situation that a person could call them out for police brutality. So this is one of the limitations that prevents police officers to do their job successfully.
Another important limitation to the crime rate is that money is an important factor, and the city only has a limited amount of funding. And if you take money and put it back into law enforcement, it will take it away from other important areas such as the education system and basically our taxes going towards city restoration like roads and stuff. In conclusion, the city of St. Louis is the highest murder capital in the United States, and this is important to consider what we do for our students in the education system that can help them have more successful lives away from crime. Law enforcement also they're not there to harm citizens, they're there to protect and serve, and to bring back support and money towards law enforcement and to better our education systems. It will in turn lower the crime rate in big cities such as St. Louis. Thank you.
All right. Good job. All right, so Carolina, let's ask you a question first. How did the group decide to include David's perspective, lens, or conclusion into the overall presentation?
David's lens talked about the economic funding of the police department. In his paper, it stated how the city of St. Louis doesn't fund their program, the police department as much as they need to. It stated that $4 billion was taken out of the police department, which has overall affected how they encounter their crimes, which they lacked their resources, how they went to the crimes, and also they had low officers, which they're low on staff.
All right, Kearns, give one specific way that your thinking changed as a result of learning about Andy's findings.
So Andy took a look at our thesis through an ethical lens, and she found that the problems that were in St. Louis relating to its crime were not necessarily just that were problems due to the urbanization or due to the law enforcement. They were more systematically implemented into programs such as the law enforcement. So specifically to her paper, just inherent racism as well as the code of law enforcement that she discussed and the police officers not following that code were two sort of systematic ways that St. Louis crime has been affected.
Okay? David, what is an example of a compelling argument from one of your peers' individual reports that you decided to exclude from your team's presentation and why?
One of the ones that we decided to exclude is actually one of my paper. My paper focused on depopulation in the city of St. Louis. Saying the St. Louis city is overpopulated, and so that wouldn't go along with our presentation because it would just contradict what we would say.
Okay? And Andy, describe an argument from one of your peers' individual reports that made you think differently about your team's solution or conclusion.
Kearns brought in the idea of the disconnected youth in terms of the crime rate increasing. I know from personal, in my paper, that my paper focused on the adults, the adult population being the reason crime rate was so high in St. Louis. But reading Kearns' paper really brought in the importance of the education system for me and made me realize that youth really is the future of St. Louis, and depending on how they're taught and how they're handled by law enforcement, it's going to affect greatly the future.
All right. Good job. Thank you.